Let us begin in the quiet space that words often fail to reach. When a woman journeys through a season of profound solitude, it is easy to see only the surface absence of physical connection. Yet, the truth flows much deeper. When intimacy, the kind that allows for a gentle unfolding, for a sense of safe harbor, recedes from her life, it leaves an invisible imprint upon her inner world. This is not simply about physical touch. It is about a silent thirst that emerges when the well of deep, soulful acknowledgement runs dry. It begins when she no longer sees herself reflected as vital, as cherished, as a source of gentle power. This is not a weakness. It is part of our design, our human nature. We are all, in some way, flowers that turn toward the sun. For a woman, intimate connection is often not a mere event. It is a source of light that illuminates her own worthiness, her vibrant life force, her capacity to inspire deep feeling. When this light fades, when there is no reflection looking back, her inner dialogue begins to change its course. It is not a sudden storm, but a slow turning of the tide. Gentle questions may surface in the quiet moments. Does my energy still radiate? Am I still felt by the world? Does the essence of my own spirit still feel full? Over a long period, this lack of reflection, energetic, emotional, soulful, can gently wear away at the foundations of how she sees herself. The presence that once felt like a gentle warmth may start to feel contained. Her energy in a space might recede, not because of any external pressure, but because an inner part of her has ceased to expand outward. She may begin to carry this feeling of emptiness within her, and that stillness develops its own subtle language. It speaks of uncertainty, of a mind that circles back on itself, of a deep spiritual fatigue, in a world that so often measures a woman's worth through her connection to others. This long absence can create a quiet disharmony within. She may be a leader in her field, her mind as clear as a mountain spring, her outer shell radiating confidence, and yet a hidden current of loneliness may be slowly reshaping her inner landscape. This is the paradox of strength. She may not seek another to complete her, but her spirit may still long for the resonance that true connection offers. In that empty space, the mind will always seek balance. She might pour her life force into her work, her friendships, her own betterment. Yet, underneath it all, there is often a quiet echo, a call not just for another's touch, but for another's presence, for the profound acknowledgement of being chosen, of being seen. The weight of this solitude is gentle. It does not announce itself with thunder. It is like the evening mist. It manifests as a diminished sense of self, a persistent underlying disquiet, or a sudden gust of unexplained frustration. Sometimes, it even shows up as a growing distance from her own physical form. She might begin to turn away from mirrors. She might choose clothing for function, rather than for the joy of expression. Her sensual nature, the very river of life that nourishes her essence, begins to flow more slowly. This is not because she is flawed, but because there has been no call for the river to surge. We must see that intimacy is a flow, an exchange of energy, not a static object to be acquired. And when that flow ceases, it isn't only one part of her life that grows quiet. It is the entire inner ecosystem that is affected. The mind is deprived of one of its most grounding anchors, heartfelt connection. The inner chemistry shifts. The waters of tranquility may recede, while the tides of stress begin to rise. And the greatest illusion is that we begin to see this as normal. We tell ourselves that this is the path of life, that to be self-reliant is the highest virtue, that we are well. And yes, self-reliance is a noble mountain peak, but so is vulnerability. So is the courage to stand in your own truth and say, my soul misses being felt, being honored, being met in that sacred way. When a woman carries this unspoken truth for too long, she may start to build a life around practicality, logic, and efficiency, yet a life that is parched of deep feeling. She becomes the one who carries all, but feels little of the weight or the joy. She walks through her days managing the currents of life, but not truly swimming in its waters. Her mind, in a profound effort to shield her from the edge, numbs her to the feeling of her own passion. This is not a sign of defeat. It is a testament to survival. But this survival has a quiet cost. And this brings us to the heart of the matter. This journey is not about a frantic search for another to fill that space. It is about a conscious return to the emotional and energetic temple within that has grown quiet. It is about understanding that this absence is not merely physical. It is of the mind, of the spirit. It touches the very roots of her identity, her deepest longings, her sense of place in the world. And to ignore this, to dismiss its importance, to pretend that we can live without this nourishment, only makes the inner ground more arid. There is no shame in the deep desire for connection. If this exploration resonates with the path you find yourself on, know that you are not walking alone. There is a global community of souls journeying towards this same inner awareness. We invite you to join this collective practice. Consider subscribing to this channel and perhaps share this reflection with others so that they too may find a moment of understanding on their own path. Your presence here adds to the strength of our shared journey. The desire for intimacy is one of the most fundamental energies of our existence. When this deep-seated call goes unanswered, it does not show our fragility. It simply affirms our humanity. But to remain silent about its effects, to pretend it does not alter our inner landscape, that is what slowly leads to a state of inner fragmentation. So the question becomes a gentle one. How do we begin the journey of reconnection, not only with others, but with the deepest parts of ourselves? How do we give honor to the parts of our spirit that still long for contact, not just of the skin, but of the soul, of our very life force? Because when a woman rediscovers the river of her own sacred aliveness, her entire perception of the world begins to transform. The tone of her voice shifts, the way she carries herself changes. Her sense of being radiates from a place of profound inner truth. The absence of intimacy does not define a woman, but its current does shape the shores of her inner life. And if she remains unaware of this gentle shaping, she risks becoming a version of herself that is admirable, capable, yet quietly starving for true nourishment. So I invite every woman here, not to seek proof of your worth, but to honor your own feeling, to acknowledge where you feel the disconnection, to reclaim your own value, not as something to be earned, but as a truth to be felt, because this is where the path to wholeness begins. And in that quiet honesty, in that sacred return to the self, she is no longer waiting to be seen. She embodies her own light. We often speak of intimate connection in the language of emotion, and this is true, but what we seldom acknowledge is how profoundly physical its absence can become. Not in a sudden, dramatic way, but as a slow, quiet turning of the body inward. It is a kind of internal protest that does not use words, but instead accumulates, showing up as a weariness, a subtle weight, a loss of vitality that is difficult to name, yet deeply felt. When a woman is without this kind of connection for a great length of time, her physical self begins to change, not as a form of self-punishment, but simply from a lack of tending. This lack of tending is not a conscious choice. It is often a truth that has been left unspoken. You see, the body is a garden. It thrives on rhythm, on balance, on the light and water that affirm its aliveness. For a woman, intimacy is not just a peak experience. It is a form of circulation, a regulation of inner tides, a way for the nervous system to return to a state of peace. It is the body's natural wisdom for processing the pressures of life, for creating joy, for grounding her spirit in the here and now. When this cycle is interrupted, the body does not simply fall silent. It may begin to hold on. It may become less fluid. Its natural energy may retract. And this change might appear as a persistent tightness in the shoulders, a breath that does not reach the belly, digestive unease, or a constant feeling of tiredness that no amount of sleep can seem to touch. It may manifest as a woman who appears well, but has quietly lost the feeling of being at home in her own skin. Let us be very clear. The path is not about seeking connection for the sake of it. It is about understanding what occurs when our sensual energy, the very life current that fuels a woman's vitality, is repeatedly set aside or quieted. Over time, the lack of this nourishing energy becomes a signal to the body that its joy is not a priority. And in its wisdom, the body may begin to conserve its resources. Vitality may lessen, the inner fire may cool, the muscles may carry old stories, the nervous system can become less able to flow with life's changes. This is not simply a mental state, it is deeply rooted in our physical being. There is a profound relationship between the absence of sacred connection and the rise of stress-related imbalances in women. Why does this happen? Because shared intimacy is not an indulgence. It is a tool for returning to harmony. It supports the natural rhythms of the body. It allows the waters of calming hormones to flow. It soothes the part of our nervous system that allows for rest and healing. When a woman is in a regular flow of intimacy, be it with a partner or through her own self-care, she often experiences a deeper sense of emotional ease and physical grace. Her body is in flow. Her energy is in circulation. Without this, life force can become like still water. It doesn't just affect her feelings, it can affect her very biology. The challenge is that many women are taught to accept this state of stagnation. They are told this is a sign of growing older, of stress, of a busy life. And yes, these are real forces, but there is often a deeper river flowing beneath. Many have stopped honoring their own sacred, sensual nature, not because the desire has vanished, but because at some point it felt easier to close the door than to sit with an unanswered longing. It became more practical to ignore the desire than to face the vulnerability it holds. And so, a quiet numbing of the body begins. This is not an act of surrender, but an act of adaptation. And women possess a powerful capacity for adaptation. But what is sometimes lost in this adjustment is the sacred dialogue between the body and the soul. When the body is viewed only as a vehicle for productivity, for caregiving, for crossing items off a list, it ceases to be a source of wisdom and joy. It can become a vessel for duty, not delight. Over time, this quiet separation can diminish a crucial part of what it means to feel deeply and vibrantly alive. So what does the journey of reclaiming your body's wisdom look like? It begins with listening. It begins by noticing where the body feels guarded, where the breath is shallow, where it holds a deep hunger not for food, but for sensation. It means moving in ways that bring a sense of grace, not just efficiency. It means touching your own skin, not to judge it, but to commune with it. It means understanding that a prolonged lack of this vital connection is not a neutral state. It has ripples. And while the path isn't about rushing to find a solution, it is about awakening to its presence. The truth is our bodies are in constant communication. The real question is, are we quiet enough to hear? When the body is deprived of loving touch, of release, of energetic activation, it doesn't just grow quieter. It begins to speak in other ways, through tension, through exhaustion, through a general sense of being disconnected from oneself. Over time, this detachment can become an identity. She may see herself as a woman who does not need intimacy, not because this is her ultimate truth, but because this has become her shelter. This is not a call to chase after connection at all costs. It is a quiet invitation to acknowledge the cost of living without it for too long. It is a reminder that the body and the soul are not two separate things, and that our physical vitality is a sacred pillar of our emotional well-being. To dismiss it is to turn away from a part of ourselves that is deeply feminine, deeply alive, and profoundly human. So ask yourself, what is your body trying to share with you that your mind has been too busy to hear? The subtle aches, the weariness, the deep quiet, none of it is accidental. It is a language, a map, a mirror, and perhaps, just perhaps, the time to listen has come. There is a place inside every woman that exists deeper than her thoughts, her plans, her daily obligations. It is the part of her that doesn't just want to manage life. It wants to feel life, to breathe it in, to create with it, to desire, to be a channel for a wild, beautiful, untamed current of energy. This part of her has no interest in efficiency. Its only interest is in being fully, vibrantly alive. And this vitality, this inner spark, has its roots in her sacred sensual and spiritual essence. When a woman lives for a long time without this intimate exchange, not just in body but in heart and spirit, a quiet change begins. The first shifts are often unseen. A gentle dimming of the senses, a feeling of distance from her own body's wisdom, a subtle fading of the vibrant colors in how she meets the world. This is not about needing another to make her whole. It is about a fading connection with her own inner fire. Because this energy is not just about physical union. It is the fuel for creativity, intuition, vision, confidence, and flow. When this inner spring remains dormant, it is not only her physical self that is touched by the stillness. It is her soul. She may still offer her smile, still show up to her duties, still accomplish her goals. But underneath, there may be a feeling of being muted, as if a core part of her is no longer singing. She might notice a lack of inspiration, a sense of low motivation, or a persistent emotional stillness. She may not trace this back to the absence of sensuality, because we are not often taught to see this sacred link. But the link is ancient and real. Our sensual energy and our spiritual energy are not two different streams. They are one and the same river. In many old traditions, this was deeply understood. A woman's pleasure was not a distraction. It was a doorway to the divine. The very same life force that fuels passion also fuels one's purpose. The same inner space that can open in profound connection is the space that gives birth to new ideas, to deep insight, to a quiet knowing that transcends logic. When a woman is connected to her sensual self, she doesn't just feel more pleasure. She feels more possibility. She walks through her life in a different way, with a grounded presence that comes from within. And yet, our modern way of life often teaches women to bypass this current. We are trained to be productive, to be in control, to be self-sufficient in a way that seals us off. Desire is often labeled as something extra, sensuality as something not serious. And so, we may disconnect from this deep inner well. We begin to live more in our minds, less in our bodies. We become more practical and less passionate. Without even knowing it, we may begin to accept a version of ourselves that is safe, contained, and spiritually thirsty. The true loss here is not just the absence of another's touch. It is the growing distance from the self. When a woman is not in conversation with her own desires, she can lose access to a profound kind of truth. Her voice may become quieter, her personal boundaries may become softer, her creative spark may begin to fade, and over a long journey, she can begin to forget what it felt like to simply be at home in her own skin. Not as a tool for a purpose, but as a source of endless wonder. The question is not, when did you last share intimacy with another? The deeper question is, when did you last feel truly alive and lit up from within by your own life? That is the true emptiness, when not just pleasure disappears, but the feeling of aliveness itself. A woman who is disconnected from this sacred energy can find herself moving through her days as if in a muted landscape. Everything can feel flat, her duties can feel heavier, even moments of happiness can feel distant. This is not a failure of the mind. It is a depletion of the spirit. To reclaim this energy is not to chase after fleeting moments of pleasure. It is to remember that you are an embodiment of pleasure, that your body was designed not just for endurance, but for deep experience. That your sensuality is not a weakness to be managed. It is a sacred source of your power, and no one outside of you holds the key to this door. You can reawaken it through mindful movement, through sound, through conscious touch, through quiet presence, through allowing yourself to simply feel without condition. By seeing your body not as a project to be fixed, but as a sacred instrument. By returning to your own inner rhythms, your own inner seasons. This is not about being intimate with someone else first. It is about becoming intimate with yourself. It is about choosing to live from your inner core outward, rather than waiting for another to light a fire that already exists within you. When a woman reclaims her sensual self, she remembers that she is not here on this earth merely to survive. She is here to create, to connect, to embody wisdom and grace. And this remembrance changes everything, from the way she enters a room, to the way she speaks her deepest truths, to the way she holds herself in stillness when nobody else is watching. This journey is not just for her own healing. It is a quiet revolution, because a woman who is connected to her body, to her soul, to her sensual essence, is a woman who walks in alignment with her true nature. She does not search for approval. She is the source of her own approval. She does not ask for attention. She radiates presence. And that is what this world deeply needs. Not more striving, but more being. Not more perfection, but more authenticity. So ask yourself, what have you been silencing within you in order to fit in? What part of your soul have you put aside to seem composed, capable, or worthy? And more importantly, what could possibly shift if you simply allowed that beautiful part of you to come home? Because the absence of intimacy is not just a space in your life. It is often a quiet ache in the soul. And the healing journey begins not with waiting, but with remembering the wholeness that you were before you ever thought you were broken. This path of remembering is a practice, a daily commitment to your own well-being. If you are choosing this journey of returning to yourself, we invite you to make this space a part of your practice. By subscribing, you are making a promise to continue listening to the wisdom of your soul. We are grateful to walk this path alongside you.